Ferrovial, beyond decarbonization. At Ferrovial, we believe that together we can face the threat of climate change. Only by working together will we be able to limit the increase in the global average temperature. The Ferrovial 2030 sustainability strategy is at the heart of our company, and it is the tool that helps us to fight climate change and address the challenges of our society, while creating new business opportunities in order to continue to be recognized by the main sustainability indices. We are the first company to certify the alignment of our sustainability strategy with the United Nations SDGs. Since we began with this strategy in 2009, we have worked towards achieving a carbon-neutral economy with two important target dates, 2030 and 2050. We apply ESG, environment, social and governance criteria to decarbonize our daily activities and to develop others that are more environmentally friendly. We have already come a long way in the process of replacing polluting energy sources with clean ones and achieving emission-free mobility. But decarbonization will only succeed with innovation. Our response to these global changes is innovative, efficient and sustainable infrastructure. In 2025, 100% of the electricity Ferrovial consumes will be renewable. In addition, we foster employment and promote sustainable transport and energy-efficient cities. We broaden cooperation and build, keeping in mind how to help local economies find solutions allowing them to adapt to climate change, especially the most vulnerable. Our infrastructure projects improve their quality of life and increase their level of inclusion. That's sustainability. Our environmental targets are ambitious. To achieve the goal of net zero energy, we need everyone to get on board. Join us on the fascinating journey of creating a new society with new sustainable business opportunities.
Buenos días.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank all shareholders for attending this annual general meeting for Ferrovial, being held on second summons, because yesterday we didn't reach a sufficient quorum in order to constitute it on first summons. At the request of the board, we have with us the Notary of Madrid, Javier Navarro Rubio, here in the room in order to minute the proceedings. I give the floor to the Secretary of the Board of Directors and of the General Meeting, Santiago Ortiz, who will now read the call to meeting. Good morning. The announcement of this annual general meeting was published pursuant to Articles 27 of the Corporate Bylaws and 516 of the Corporate Enterprises Act on the website of the CNMV on the 24th of February 2022, on the websites of the ABC, El Mundo, La Razón, El País, Expansión y Cinco Días del Economista daily papers on the 1st of March, and also on the Ferrovial website. Given that this is a long text and pursuant to Article 19.3 of the General Meeting Regulations, we give you a summary. It includes the agenda and possible supplements, the recommendation to take part in the AGM remotely, the online shareholders forum, the right to information with a list of the documents available, right to attendance, representation, remote attendance, and delegation of votes over remote communication media, and the rules regarding how to exercise these rights, and also personal data protection. We now give you a summary of the agenda. First of all, examination and approval, where forthcoming, of the individual and consolidated group financial statements and management report for the financial year ended 31st of December 2021. Second, application of results of financial year 2021. Third, examination and approval, where forthcoming, of the management of the Board of Directors in the financial year 2021. Fourth, re-election, confirmation and appointment of directors. This point is divided into 7 sections. Each will be voted for separately. Fifth, the approval of a share capital increase in the amount to be determined by issuing new ordinary shares with a par value of 20 each against reserves with no share premium. Sixth, approval of a second capital increase in the amounts to be determined. 7th, approval of a share capital reduction through the redemption of a maximum of 40,783 treasury shares. 8th, amendment of the bylaws. This item is divided into 3 sections. 9th, the amendment of the regulations of the General Shareholders Meeting, also in 3 sections. 10th, advisory vote on the company's climate strategy report for 2021. 11th, approval of the directors' remuneration policy. 12th, advisory vote on the annual report on directors' remuneration for 2021. 13th, authorization of the Board of Directors for the derivative acquisition of treasury shares. 14th, delegation of powers to interpret, rectify, supplement, execute and implement resolutions adopted by the AGM. 15th, information on the amendments made to the regulations of the Board of Directors. So this is a summary of the agenda. No use has been made of the rights given to shareholders to ask for a supplement to the agenda or to put further proposals. Since the publication of the Co2 meeting, the shareholders, pursuant to the Corporate Enterprises Act, have been able to go to the headquarters to look at the documentation or ask for it to be sent to them at home. And the company has been posting the information on its website without interruption pursuant to Article 518 of the Corporate Enterprises Act. And we now give you the provisional quorum.
Present in this general shareholders meeting, present and represented 541,484,077 shares, which are 73.012% of the total share capital and the written and paid for, which is enough quorum to validly hold this general meeting on second summons. Later, we will give you the final figures.
Señoras y señores,
Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, on behalf of the Board of Directors and on my own behalf, I'd like to welcome you to the 2022 General Meeting of Shareholders. I'd like to thank those shareholders who are here in person and also thank those of you who are connecting online. Above all, I hope that you and your families and all those close to you are in good health. This year, we can report that Ferrovial has noted an improvement in economic activity as a result of better control of the pandemic in most of the markets in which we operate. The company ended the year with a net cash position, excluding infrastructure projects, of 2,182 million euros, compared against 1,991 million euros the previous year, an operating cash flow ex-taxes amounting to 1,116 million euros, up from 964 million euros in 2020. This climate of recovery is tarnished by the situation in Ukraine, which is having an impact by triggering inflationary pressure, higher interest rates, a shortage of raw materials, and disruptions to supply chains, whose full consequences have yet to become evident. We're monitoring the situation, focusing particularly on Poland because of Budimex, in order to adopt the most appropriate responses. Let's turn again to analysing 2021, when I'd like to emphasise Ferrovial's financial strength, evidenced by the improvement in the net cash position and in its cash flow. Moreover, toll road traffic has increased, particularly in the United States. Roads such as the NTE and the 35W have now exceeded pre-pandemic traffic levels. However, in Canada, where restrictions have been more prolonged, Highway 407 is seeing a gradual and progressive improvement, but traffic is still below its 2019 level. As for airports, restrictions, particularly on long-haul flights, are delaying the recovery, but we're confident that traffic will respond positively once they're relaxed. Dividends from our toll roads in North America increased in 2021 to 384 million euros. In the case of Heathrow and AGS, however, dividends remained suspended until traffic recovers and the situation improves. And then M&A. Well, We've increased our stake in I-66 to 55.7% and acquired 24.86% of IRB infrastructure developers in India. Shareholder remuneration increased by 22.8% year-on-year to 463 million euros. We continue to make progress in the area of sustainability. We're committed to maintaining the highest standards of environmental, social, and governance performance. In 2021, we went one step further and created an energy infrastructure and mobility business unit as a firm move into renewable energy, sustainable mobility, and the circular economy. At year-end, revenue from continuing operations totaled 6,778 million euros, which is a 5.4% increase in like-for-like terms. EBITDA amounted to 596 million euros, which is a 39.5% increase in like-for-like terms over the 460 million euros reported in 2020. Net profit was 1,197 million euros, compared against a loss of 424 million euros last year. The considerable increase was attributable mainly to one-off items, such as the accounting adjustment of the value of the I-66 concession operating company after acquiring an additional 5.7%, and the sale of the environmental services business in Spain and Portugal. Ferrovial ended the year with 6,421 million euros in liquidity and a robust net cash position, excluding infrastructure projects, as I mentioned earlier. These results are underpinned by good operating cash flow, partly due to higher dividends from infrastructure projects. Meanwhile, consolidated net debt, including discontinued operations, amounted to 4,451 million euros, as compared to 2,541 million euros at the end of 2020, basically as a result of consolidating the total debt of the I-66 on the balance sheet following the increase in our stake. Operating cash flow, excluding infrastructure projects and before taxes, amounted to 607 million euros. Here, toll roads contributed 469 million euros in dividends and airports 3 million euros, while services contributed 227 million euros in operating cash flow and construction 44 million euros before taxes in all cases. Capital expenditure amounted to 1,112 million euros, up from 286 million the previous year. 864 million euros were allocated to toll roads, including the 463 million euros invested in Interstate 66, comprising capital invested and the purchase of an additional stake, as well as the acquisition of a 24.86% stake in the Indian company IRB for 369 million euros. We also announced the acquisition of a 60% stake in Dalaman Airport for 140 million euros, and services invested 67 million euros and construction 55 million euros in the whole year. Divestments totaled 1,621 million euros in 2021, as against 501 million in 2020, including the divestment of the environmental services division for 1,032 million and the sale of non-core assets in construction for 529 million and the Norte Litoral toll road for 47 million. These divestments are a continuation of our policy for rotating mature assets in order to extract maximum value for our shareholders. The construction backlog reached a record 12,216 million euros in 2021, of which 85% is from international business. Notable additions in the United States included the contract to expand the I-35 in San Antonio for $1,500 million and the I-16, I-75 for $229 million. In Australia, we obtained a contract worth €1,240 million to build a section of the Sydney Metro. We also obtained the Norwich Western Link contract in the United Kingdom for €125 million, as well as the construction of Expressway 56 in Poland, worth €128 million. Ferrovial maintains its position as a global player in the world infrastructure markets. On a proportionate consolidation basis, which provides a more accurate picture of the company's reality, Ferrovial obtained 86% of revenue and EBITDA on international markets, and 81% of the construction backlog lies outside Spain. During 2021, the company remained focused on its strategy of shielding liquidity and optimizing funding sources. A €500 million bond issued in 2013 matured in 2021 and was not refinanced. The company maintains the €250 million drawn against the syndicated credit line, and at year-end we had a €250 million outstanding in euro commercial paper at negative rates under the European Central Bank's Pandemic Emergency Purchase Programme. In December 2021, Sintra completed the issuance of $609 million in senior secured notes at LBJ, which increased the amount of the initial debt, extending its maturity at the same time as reducing its cost. Transchile was also refinanced for $115 million, and Centella raised $143 million. Both maturing in 5 years, paying coupons of 3.6% and 2.62% to 3.52% respectively. The Ferrovial share ended the year at €27.56, having appreciated by 22% over the year, compared with an 8% gain on the IBEX index. Market capitalization increased by €20,218 million in 2021. The share closed yesterday at €23.75, which was down 13.8% so far in 22. Meanwhile, IBEX saw a depreciation of 2.7%. Yesterday, market cap stood at €17,423 million. Total shareholder remuneration in 2021 was €463 million. This is a significant improvement against the €377 million in 2020. The figure includes the €31 million value of the scrip dividend and the €432 million in share buybacks. Among the motions to be presented to you today is a flexible dividend programme in similar terms to those implemented in previous years for an equivalent of €0.715 per share, up to the €520 million figure. And then in corporate governance, the company is constantly seeking the best approaches to ensure continuous improvement of our governance in terms of both the composition of the board and the policies and procedures it adopts to ensure optimal decision-making for the benefit of our shareholders. Ferrovial's corporate governance seeks to ensure integrity and transparency. Ferrovial currently complies fully or partially with the vast majority of the recommendations in the Good Governance Code for listed companies. We regularly analyze best practices and standards in corporate governance in order to include them where we think it's advisable in our internal regulations. Some years ago, the board undertook a process of renewal to make it more international and to increase its independence and diversity. In May 2021, 2 new female directors were appointed, Alicia Reyes and Hildegard Wortmann. This resulted in a material change in the board's profile, which now comprises 33% females and 67% independent members. We believe that the board's more international, more independent and more diverse composition more accurately reflects the complexity of our society and our economy, as well as the issues it addresses. During the year, the Board of Directors adopted a sustainability policy. It also amended its own terms of reference in order to adapt their content to the latest amendment in the Corporate Enterprises Act, as well as the amendments in the tax compliance and best practices policy and the risk control and management policy. In the area of sustainability, the board approved Ferrovial's 2020 Climate Strategy Report and submits the 2021 report to you today for a consultative vote. I'd like to highlight here 2 decisions that strengthen the role of the shareholders' meeting in this area. The first empowered the shareholders' meeting to decide on the emissions reduction plan, and the second enables Ferrovial's climate strategy reports to be submitted for a consultative vote each year. In Ferrovial, we demand the highest ethical standards, not only for our executives, employees and directors, but also from third parties with whom we work. As a result, we have updated the procedure for the approval and oversight of sponsorship and patronage projects and donations, and we also approved a code of ethics for suppliers, and we amended the procedure for due diligence with respect to supplier integrity. In the area of sustainability, the Dow Jones Sustainability Index recognized us as one of the most sustainable companies in the industry for the 20th consecutive year. Ferrovial also continues to be included in international sustainability indices such as FTSE4Good, MSCI, Vigeo, CDP, and the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index, amongst others. We maintain a notable and continued presence in the international indices that measure companies' sustainability. And I think that really shows the quality and the importance that Ferrovial attaches to all environmental, social and governance issues. We also continued with our social infrastructure programs, developing water supply and sanitation projects in Africa, Latin America and India. I'd also like to highlight that we've set up a Ferrovial Stronger Together for Ukraine fundraiser among our employees and friends, whose funds will be matched by the company to help refugees through a specialized NGO. And in health and safety, we have a top priority for the company. We've made considerable progress during the year in the frequency rate of serious and fatal accidents, which went down 15% compared to the previous year. But we're far from being satisfied because, unfortunately, we did have 8 fatal accidents. And so we're taking all measures we can in order to neutralize these figures. Our commitment to the fight against climate change is firm and unwavering. Our sustainability plan sets ambitious CO2 emission reduction targets. And last year, we reduced Scope 1 and 2 emissions, those arising from our production processes, by 5.3% in absolute terms, and our Scope 3 emissions by 10%. We've got a carbon neutral goal for 2050, and for that, we're significantly increasing our use of electricity from renewable sources, using zero emissions vehicles and improving the efficiency of our asphalt plants and our construction machinery. Our airports have also set specific emission reduction targets for 2030 and for 2050. The HES airports achieved carbon neutrality in 2020. In 2021, Ferrovial's work was recognized with a range of awards in the area of environment, digital transformation, social responsibility, and innovative design. Some of our assets also won international awards, such as Heathrow's recognition as the best airport in Western Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, Ferrovial has evidenced its resilience in times of uncertainty. We have a strong cash position and ample liquidity, reflecting the company's sound financial health. Accordingly, Ferrovial is ready to seize emerging opportunities with innovative, sustainable solutions in transport infrastructure, mobility, and renewable energy. To conclude, on behalf of the Board of Directors, I want to thank you, the shareholders, and also our customers and suppliers for your trust in our company. I'd also like to acknowledge and express my gratitude for the great work done by all of our employees, especially now in these times that demand such extraordinary resilience. Many thanks for attending. And now I'll hand over to Mr. Van Gool, the Chair of the Audit and Control Committee, to report to shareholders regarding the main activities of the committee over 2021.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm addressing you as Chairman of the Audit and Control Committee of Ferrovial SA, which is the board committee responsible for supervising and assessing the preparation and integrity of the financial and non-financial information and the risk management and control systems, as well as issues relative to regulatory compliance and corporate governance. The committee currently has 4 members, all independent directors, Mrs. Alicia Reyes, Mr. Philip Bowman, Mr. Gonzalo Urquijo, and myself. All, as I said, are independent directors. The committee considers in its activities the recommendations of the CNMV's practical guidelines on audit committees for public interest entities. I shall now summarize the most relevant activities carried out in the year 2021. In any case, the operation of the committee is described in detail in the report prepared by the committee itself, approved by the Board of Directors, which has been made available to shareholders on Ferrovial's website. The committee has reviewed and reported favorably on the financial and non-financial statements prior to their presentation to the board and their submission to the authorities and the market. In this task, we have had the cooperation of the external auditor, who's taken part in the 5 meetings held during the year. The external auditor has reported on their limited review of the half-yearly financial statements closed on June 30th, 2021, and the audit of the annual financial statements closed on December 31st, issuing in all cases an unqualified opinion. The auditor has focused on the following points to make sure that their work would contribute to the integrity and accuracy of the financial information. It has informed the committee on the materiality thresholds, their strategy, and the work plan for conducting the audit of the year. Have reviewed the main judgments and estimations with an impact on financial information and has reported to the committee on the main risk areas which could potentially impact the reliability of the financial information. It has outlined the main internal control recommendations arising from the 2020 audit. It has complied with all the independence requirements, with the necessary statement being provided, as well as meetings and management. The external auditor has had enough time to report and answer questions from the committee, without the presence, in this case, of the company's executives. It has presented the conclusions of its audit work, both in the preliminary and a final format. And finally, the auditor has also reported to the board on the work carried out and the evolution of the group's accounting position and risks. In turn, the company's management has periodically reported to the committee on the operation of the internal control financial reporting system, in particular on the controls for significant judgments and estimates included in the financial reporting and on the results of the annual risk assessment of such reporting. The committee has also been supported by the internal audit department. The committee has regularly monitored its activities and the degree of compliance with the work plan for 2021 and has approved the audit plan for 2022 and its budget. Likewise, the committee has been periodically informed by the Compliance and Risk Department the main risks for the company and its group, both financial and non-financial, and of the systems in place for their identification, management, and control. We have also received during the year information on the incident management system established by Ferrovial, or the concerns management system, which allows any employee or person related to the company to report with full certainty of anonymity and confidentiality, if so desired, any inappropriate behaviors. Finally, and in relation to compliance and corporate governance matters, the committee has examined, before presenting it to the board, the annual corporate governance report. It's proposed the amendment of the board's regulations to include, amongst other matters, recent changes introduced in the Capital Companies Act, supervised the effectiveness of Ferrovial's compliance programs, and has been duly informed about the crime prevention model. Has prepared a report on related party transactions, which is posted on the company's website. These were, in summary, the tasks performed by the committee in the year ending December 31st, 2021. On behalf of the Audit and Control Committee, I would like to thank you for your attention. Good morning.
Muchas gracias, Oscar.
Thank you very much, Oscar. And now I'd like to give the floor to Ignacio Madridejos, Group CEO.
Señoras y señores.
Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, good morning, everyone. It's a great honor to take part once again in this general shareholders meeting to share the results of 2021. I would like to thank all of the shareholders who are with us today in person, as well as those who are following proceedings remotely. I'd also like to thank all Ferrovial's employees and their families for their effort and dedication throughout the year. 2021 was the year in which we saw a beginning of an economic recovery. I'm not going to repeat the comments already made by the chairman. I'd just like to underline the improvement of our performance as a result of better control of the pandemic through vaccination campaigns, a favorable context which has enabled us to see growth in traffic volumes through our highways, and also an excellent performance of our construction division. Also, sustainability, as I'll have a chance to discuss a bit later, has played a strategic role for Ferrovial and is also an opportunity for the company. 2022 is a year which has begun with the Ukrainian conflict, whose impact on our activities we are yet unable to estimate. We are focused on inflationary trends and rising interest rates, difficulties in accessing certain supplies, as well as scarcity in human resources in some countries. I'd like to point out that Ferrovial, including its Polish subsidiary Budimex, is focused on helping the millions of Ukrainian refugees fleeing the conflict. We've opened an account where we are receiving support from employees and friends of Ferrovial, contributions that will be matched by the company. The Horizon 24 plan is on its second year, and in spite of the difficulties caused by the new COVID variants, we're making adequate progress. Our EBITDA has increased over 11% yearly, and we are moving forward on the 4 strategic priorities: people, sustainable growth, operational excellence, and innovation. I'll now review the main aspects of the Horizon 24 plan. The health and well-being plan is still obtaining satisfactory results, with a 15% reduction in 2021 in serious and fatal accidents. We will not rest until we can be sure that every Ferrovial employee will be able to return home safe and sound after their workday. As far as sustainable growth, we're still focused on developing and managing infrastructures in key markets, particularly focused on the US, but exploring selective growth opportunities in other geographies. The divestment of our service division has continued to move forward. In highways, we have AVIA, which is our initiative to develop smart roads. In airports, we have managed to have reasonable performance in spite of the restrictions caused by the pandemic. Sustainability plan is moving ahead, confirming our commitment with the environment. We've reduced our CO2 emissions 5.3% with respect to the previous year, and we maintain our net zero targets before 2050. We've also launched the Digital Horizon 24 plan, which will promote the company's digitization and innovation in fields such as efficiency, risk management, and client-centered competitiveness. Moving on to the main figures of 2021, our turnover rose 3.8% and is at 6.778 billion euros. This growth is due to a large extent to the excellent performance of our construction division. Our EBITDA was 596 million euros, which is up 4.7% with respect to the 406 million of 2020. And EBITDA margin has reached 1.1, or our net profit rather, is now at 1.19 billion, when it was minus 424 million in 2020. There's been an accounting adjustment as a result of the purchase of a percentage of I-66, which is behind a large part of this improvement, together with the divestment of services and the excellent performance of construction. Let's now see the geographic breakdown of our turnover. As I've said, it was 6.778 billion, 90% from construction, 9% from highways, and 1% from airports. Our EBITDA was 596 million, 415 million from highways, 245 million from construction. By countries, 40% of our turnover from the US and Canada, 26% Poland, 16% Spain, 9% UK, and 9% others. As for our operating margin, the US and Canada brought in 330 million, Poland 164, Spain 120, and the UK booked a negative result of minus 17 million euros due to the reduction in traffic in Heathrow and AGS's airports. These numbers explain the crucial importance of the American market, as well as the exceptional performance of our Polish construction subsidiary. We'll now review the same factors with the proportional integration method, which are probably a better approach to Ferrovial's situation. With this proportional integration method, our turnover was 7.515 billion, 82% from construction, 12% from highways, and 6% from airports. Our EBITDA was 888 million euros, 593 was from highways, 245 from construction, and 90 million from airports. By countries, 39% of our turnover was booked in the US and Canada, 23% in Poland, 14% in Spain, 14% in the UK, and 10% in others. And as for our gross margin, the US and Canada represent 55% of the 888 million euros. 18% is Poland, 14% Spain, the UK is 11%, and others 2%. Moving on to cash flow generation, net cash position, the company's market cap, and shareholder remuneration. 2021 was a very good year in terms of cash flow generation, with significant cash flow from dividends from highways and a significant contribution from construction and services. Operational cash flow before taxes was 607 million euros, and dividends from highways 469 million euros, which is 77% of the total. Services had an operational cash flow before taxes of 227 million, and construction 44 million euros. Our net cash position, still improving with respect to previous years, at the end of the year was 2.182 billion euros versus 1.991 billion December 2020, up therefore 191 million euros. Recovery has also improved Ferrovial's market cap up to 20.218 billion euros, and it was 16.564 billion the previous year. Due to tensions in the markets and inflationary trends, our market cap at yesterday's close of markets was 17.423 billion. Shareholder remuneration, including dividends and share buyback programs, was 463 million euros in 2021. Total shareholder return, including dividends and appreciation of the share value, was 24.3%, offsetting the drop experienced last year. The year was particularly active in M&A activity, both with investments and divestments. Investments amounted to 1.1 billion euros, as well as our capital contribution to finance the construction of I-66. We've increased by 5.7% our stake in that highway for a value of 162 million euros. We should also point out our entry into the Indian market through the acquisition of a minority 24.9% stake, IRB Infrastructure Developers, for a value of 369 million euros. We think this is a very important strategic deal which will enable us to take part in the infrastructure development program in India and to take up a stake in a company with a similar profile to ours, which combines construction and development of highways. In the airport division, we signed an agreement at the beginning of 2022 to buy a 60% stake of the Dalaman Airport for a value of 140 million euros. Divestments amounted to 1.6 billion euros, significant part due to the progress in the sale of the services business through 3 different deals. Environment services, Servicios de Medio Ambiente in Spain and Portugal, with 1.032 billion euros. Infrastructure services in Spain, also completed this year, 171 million euros, and Timec, 14 million euros. On the other hand, we've also sold off non-strategic construction assets for a value of 529 million euros, including a real estate company in Poland and the recycled aggregate business of Weber. In highways, we should also consider the rotation of the Norte Litoral highway in Portugal for a total of 4.47 million euros. As for other relevant milestones, Budimex sold its real estate division for 351 million euros. At the beginning of the quarter, we were awarded the improvements for Highway 116 I-75 in Georgia and the extension of I-35 in San Antonio. We were also awarded the construction of the S6 highway in Poland. In the UK, the construction and design of the Norwich Link highway for 125 million. In July, we were awarded a section of the Sydney Underground for 1.2 billion euros, and later a water project in Texas. Should also mention the distribution of dividends from highways, including the LBJ and the NTE. In the last quarter of the year, we closed the sale of a part of the services business for 1.032 billion, as well as the purchase of a stake in IRB Infrastructure Developers in India. We were also awarded the construction of a section of the Pan American Highway in Peru for 100 million euros. We also completed the refinancing of the LBJ for 609 million euros. Also, Weber was selected by the Texas Transport Department to build 2 roads for $161 million. I am now going to review in detail traffic through our highway and airport assets. In the case of highways, the gradual lifting of mobility restrictions, together with the vaccination campaigns, have enabled travel to increase significantly in our American managed lanes and more gradually in the 407 in Toronto, which has evolved in parallel to the lifting of restrictions. Traffic on 407 increased 13%, 46% in I-77, 33% in NTE, 27% in NTE 35 West, and 23% in the LBJ. The NTE and the 35 West are already above pre-pandemic figures. As for airports, traffic recovery has been slower Due to travel limitations caused by the pandemic, Heathrow experienced a reduction of 12.3% of its traffic with 19.4 million passengers. In spite of the reduction in traffic through Heathrow with respect to 2020, Q2 of the year showed 133% growth, which meant that terminals 2, 3 and 5 are fully operational since last summer. Also, AGS has experienced a recovery of traffic volumes of 6% versus 2020 with 3.5 million passengers. Highway sales amounted to 588 million euros. That's or 34% more than the previous year. Our gross margin was 415 million. That's 48% higher than the previous year. And dividends, as I said before, were 469 million. That's 129 million more than in 2020. 407 paid Ferrovial 164 million, while the managed lanes obtained 220 million, in both cases more than the previous year. By geographies and with the proportional integration method, 64% of our highway turnover was in the US and Canada, 20% in Spain and 5% in Portugal. We'll now review the earnings through our airports business. In Heathrow, the turnover was £1.214 billion. That's 3.3% more than the previous year. Our gross margin was £357 million versus 89 the previous year. Dividends still suspended and will not resume until traffic normalizes. In AGS, turnover was £87 million. Gross income minus £6 million with the freeze on dividends. And now I'd like to talk about our focus on sustainability through sustainable aviation fuel. Last September, one flight used this fuel in a flight from Heathrow to Glasgow. Also, the division has announced its plans to develop vertiports in the US and the UK. I've mentioned the excellent performance of construction. I will now go into a bit more detail. Our EBIT margin is now at 2.2%. Excellent management in spite of inflation. Construction turnover up 1.6% in 2021 at 6.07 billion euros. Our EBITDA was 245 million. That's 14% more than the previous year. And operational cash flow, always before taxes, was 44 million euros. By geographies, the main markets were the US and Canada with 38%, Poland with 29%, Spain with 16%, and the UK with 9%. That is, 84% of our turnover comes from international markets. I should also mention the performance of Budimex, which had an EBIT margin of 7.3%. Our backlog was at 12.216 billion euros. That's 7.4% more in like-for-like terms than in 2020. Most of it in the US and Canada with 40%, followed by Poland with 25% of the backlog, Spain with 15%, and the UK with 9%. Amongst the most relevant awards in this last year, we have the design construction of the I-35 extension in San Antonio and the new subterranean section of the Sydney Underground. I am now going to talk about the services business, which is discontinued, with sales last year of 190 million euros, which is up 8.7% versus the previous year, with an EBITDA of 365 million euros versus 217 the previous year, while operational cash flow was 227 million euros. Backlog, finally, is 8.373 billion euros. This year we've created the unit of energy and mobility infrastructures in line with our sustainability and climate action commitments. This is a unit which will promote and develop sustainable business opportunities and will coordinate existing projects in fields such as energy, mobility, and the circular economy. We have Trans-Chile, which has a transmission line, a 304-kilometer transmission line in Chile, as well as the Centella project in Chile, also 250 kilometers, and a PV plant, 50-megawatt plant in Seville. As for mobility, we have a 50% stake in City, which operates in Madrid, Paris, and recently started operating in Lyon, as well as a minority stake in Mass Global. At the end of the year, we also acquired a minority stake in the Inspiration Mobility Company, an American company whose business is investing in the US in electric vehicle assets and the associated charging infrastructure. As for our water business, we're still strengthening our concession businesses in our priority markets for P3 projects. We've grown the team and we're promoting organic growth and growth through M&A activity while seeking opportunities in the US, Europe, and Latin America. I will now describe the year in our CO2 reduction efforts. Our Scope 1 and 2 carbon footprint in 2021 was 798 billion tons. We've reduced our emissions in absolute terms 5.3% versus the previous year. That's 45,000 tons. Compared with our base year, 2009, the reduction in absolute terms was 23.5%. And in intensity, 58.4%, improving on the targets we had set for 2021, which were 18.3% and 24.5% respectively. As for Scope 3 targets, we have emitted 2,850,000 tons, which is a 318,000 ton reduction versus the previous year. That's 10% less. Reduction with respect to our base year, 2012, is 45%. In the 2030 horizon, we maintain our target of reducing our Scope 1 and 2 targets by 35% and our Scope 3 emissions by 20%. Our goal is to have 100% renewable energy supply by 2025. In 2021, 78% of the electricity we used was from renewable sources. We're also making progress towards our carbon neutral target by 2050, extending our emission reduction and compensation measures until we reach net zero. The fight against climate change is a key component of our strategy. This year, we've produced our first EU Taxonomy Report with maximum eligibility for all of our activities, with 89% over sales and 85% over capex. With this report, we have set the foundations to prepare the alignment in mitigation and adaptation of our activities for 2022, as well as those relative to other environmental targets, as well as the social taxonomy. In the strategic plan, Horizon 24, we've defined 4 priorities which will continue in 2022. The first is connected to people, our most precious asset. Our maximum priority is to guarantee their health and well-being. We're also focusing on attracting local talent with, of course, diversity criteria, increasing the presence of women in Ferrovial, particularly in executive positions. That is still one of our maximum priorities. The second is sustainable growth, developing and operating high concessional value infrastructures in our core markets, rotating mature assets, and always seeking maximum shareholder return. We will continue to focus our activity on our core markets, the US, Canada, Spain, the UK, and Poland, and to study opportunities in other regions such as Australia, rest of Europe, Latin America, or India. The third is operational excellence, based on a model which will make us more agile, efficient, and innovative. All of this by reinforcing our risk management. As I mentioned before, so reducing our environmental impact, particularly CO2 emissions, Ferrovial will continue to seek its permanence in sustainability indexes such as Dow Jones Sustainable Index, Carbon Disclosure Project, or FTSE for Good. Our fourth strategic priority is innovation. We will continue to focus on digitization to be more efficient and improve customer service. We will also be focused on smart mobility by working through projects like AVIA for the management of smart corridors. Of course, we live times of extreme volatility with the Ukrainian conflict and inflationary pressures, but we have strong financial positions, robust assets, particularly in the US and Canada. Our Horizon 24 strategy, which is taking shape, a management team with proven abilities, and we're focused on innovation and the fight against climate change. To finish, I'd like to thank our employees for their effort and dedication for making all of this possible. I'd like to thank our customers for supporting our solutions for a moving world, and our shareholders for their trust in the company and our management. Thank you very much.
We now have the final attendance list, which is as follows. In this meeting, we have 497 shareholders present, holding 271,722,195 shares, which is 37.039% of the shareholder equity. This includes shareholders who voted over remote communication means. We also have 2,089 shareholders represented by proxy, holding 270,019,738 shares, which is 36.807% of the shareholder equity. Consequently, between those present and represented by proxy, we have shares amounting to 73.847% of the total fully paid up and subscribed shareholder equity, which gives us sufficient quorum to hold this AGM on second summons. Considering this definitive quorum that the Secretary has just read out, we can now declare this general meeting to be quorate on second summons in order to deliberate and resolve on all the items of the agenda. I give the floor to the notary. Pursuant to Article 101 of the Mercantile Registry Regulations, as notary of this general meeting, I advise you that if anyone attending wishes to express any reservation or challenge the statements of the chairman and the secretary regarding the number of shareholders attending and the shareholder equity present and represented, they can do so by apprising me personally, or if they're attending remotely, they can go to the IT platform set up for this purpose. And then these will be duly minuted to the proceedings of the general meeting. We now open the floor for a Q&A for those shareholders who wish to take the floor or request further information or clarification on the items in the agenda, on the information published by the company and filed with the CNMV since the last AGM was held, or regarding the external auditor's report. The call to meeting also establishes the way in which the shareholders who are attending remotely can ask questions and speak on said items. And pursuant to Articles 197 and 520 of the Corporate Enterprises Act, until 5 days before the AGM, shareholders have had the opportunity to request further clarification and pass us questions in writing on the agenda items. This right has been used, and the questions made are published on the Ferrovial website with their answers. Pursuant to Articles 20 and following of the General Meeting Regulations, we will proceed as follows now. Attendees who wish to exercise their right to speak must first of all show their identification documents to the notary and then take their place in the microphone here in the hall. If the shareholder wishes to have a verbatim record of what they say, they must give the written version to the notary when they give him their ID documents so that he can check what's actually said against the written version. All interventions will be answered today, and if that's not possible, or if further clarification or completion is required, we will get back to you within 7 days after this meeting, pursuant to Articles 182 and 197 of the Corporate Enterprises Act, and we will publish them on the Ferrovial website. We now open the floor to your questions and requests for clarification. There aren't any questions from people attending remotely either. In that case, if there are no questions coming in, either from those attending in person here or attending remotely, I can now go on to examine each item on the agenda. I'll give the floor to the Secretary, who will discuss some practical matters and read the proposed resolutions as per the published agenda so that they can be voted on. The procedure for reading and approving the resolutions will be as follows. Pursuant to Article 24.1 of the General Meeting Regulations, and given that shareholders can go to the Ferrovial website to see the proposed resolutions, we'll just give you a summary of their content, and it won't be necessary to read them fully. After that, the chairman will ask regarding their approval. Pursuant to Article 24.4 of the General Meeting Regulations, we will deem all shareholders who haven't voted against or voted blankly or expressly have communicated their abstention to the notary to have voted in favour of the motion. With proof of sufficient votes to approve the resolution, it will be deemed approved. The exact data of the votes in favour, against, blank votes and abstentions will be minuted and will be posted to the Ferrovial website. We remind you that those attending remotely can issue your vote until when we end reading the final points which are being put out to votes. The first agenda item is divided into two parts because the mercantile regulation says that we must look at the consolidated and the individual statements separately. So first of all, to approve the financial statements, balance sheet, profit and loss account, statement of changes in equity, cash flow statement and notes of Ferrovial SA and its consolidated group prepared by the Board of Directors for the financial year ending 31st of December 2021, and the management reports of Ferrovial SA and its consolidated group prepared by the Board of Directors for the financial year ending 31st of December 2021. Approved? Then it's approved. That's agenda item 1.1. 1.2. Approve the consolidated statement of non-financial information for the year ending 31st of December 2021, which forms part of the management report of the consolidated group of Ferrovial SA. Approved? In that case, item 1.2 is approved. Item 2 on the agenda, to approve the application of the results of the financial year 2021 amounting to €31,614,831 entirely to voluntary reserves. Approved? Item 2 approved. Item 3 on the agenda, approve the management carried out by the Board of Directors during 2021. Approved? Item 3 is approved. Item 4. This is divided into 7 parts, which makes it possible to separately vote on the resolutions on the composition of the Board of Directors in order to comply with mercantile regulations. Point 4.1. To re-elect as a member of the board as an executive director, Rafael del Pino y Calvo Sotelo for the bylaw period of 3 years. Approved? Approved. We've approved item 4.1. 4.2. To re-elect as member of the Board of Directors with the category of independent director, Oscar Fanjul Martin for the bylaw established period of 3 years. Approved. Item 4.2 is approved. 4.3. To re-elect as a member of the Board of Directors with the category of proprietary director, Director Maria del Pino y Calvo Sotelo for the bylaw period of 3 years starting from the date of the resolution. Approved. Item 4.3 is approved. 4.4. Re-elect as member of the Board of Directors with the category of external director, Director José Fernando Sánchez Junco Mans for the bylaw term of 3 years starting from the date of this resolution. Approved. Item 4.4 is approved. 4.5. Re-elect as member of the Board of Directors with the category of independent director, Director Bruno Di Leo for the bylaw term of 3 years starting from the date of the resolution. Approved. Item 4.5 is approved. 4.6. Confirm the appointment of Hildegard Wortmann as director with the category of independent director, co-opted by the Board of Directors at its meeting held on the 6th of May 2021, appointing her as a director with the same category for the bylaw term of 3 years starting from the date of this resolution. Approved. Item 4.6 approved. 4.7. confirm the appointment of Alicia Reyes Revuelta as director with the category of independent, made by co-option by the Board of Directors at its meeting held on the 6th of May 2021, and appoint her as director with the same category for the bylaw term of 3 years, starting from the date of the resolution. Approved? Item 4.7 is approved. Item 5. I will give you a summary of the proposed resolution. Approve an increase in share capital for the amount resulting from multiplying the par value of 20 per share of Ferrovial SA by the total number of new shares of the company resulting from the formula. The capital increase will be divided between the listing price of the 5 trading days prior to the execution of the capital issue. The amount of the alternative amount is the market value of which is given to you and is 207,739,215.40 euros. And the number of freely assigned rights which are necessary to get a new share will be similar to the outstanding number of figures plus those that are to be issued. The price that Ferrovial will pay for each of these will be the same as the listed price of the Ferrovial share in the 5 trading sessions prior to the day of the resolution for the increase, divided by the number of rights necessary in order to obtain a new share plus 1. The increase in capital will be null and void if it's not executed after a year after the AGM, and this must be reported to the following general meeting. Approved? We approve item 5 then. Item 6. This is analogous to the previous one, and here the amount of the alternative option will be established by the Board of Directors as a function of the number of shares outstanding and the remuneration paid to the shareholders and charged to 2021 to date. It's not able to be over 312 million euros. This capital increase will be made null and void on the same conditions as in the previous item. Approved. Item 6 then is approved. Item 7, I'll sum up the content. To ratify the share buyback program to reduce the shareholder equity approved by the board on the 24th of February 2022, and to approve a reduction in the shareholder equity by the redemption of the nominal value of 6,500,783 shares, which the company has in treasury stock, and the shares which are acquired through the buyback program. The definitive figure will be established as a function of the final number of shares that are acquired in the program. It's established there are 2 caps on this. The maximum investment will be 500 million euros, and in no case can the number of shares purchased be more than 34 million, representing 4.635% of the shareholder equity of the company on the date of the resolution. The program will remain valid until the 5th of December 2022, although the board may extend its term in light of the circumstances and the best interests of the company, its shareholders. They can also bring an end to the program once they have reached the quantitative limits established, or if there are other circumstances making this advisable. The reduction of the capital will be executed in the month following the termination of the buyback program. Approved? Item 7 is approved. Item 8 of the agenda, we put to your approval the modification of the corporate bylaws, and this point is divided into 3 sections, each referring to a set of bylaw articles which will be voted on separately. The full text of the 3 proposals and the board report has been made available to shareholders along with the rest of the documents for this general meeting. Item 8, section 1 of the agenda, to amend Articles 25, 27, 28, 30 and 36 to regulate the powers to hold exclusively telematic general meetings pursuant to Article 182 of the Corporate Enterprises Act. Approved? Item 8.1 is approved. 8.2, to modify Articles 11, 38, 51, 52, 56, 57 and 59 in order to incorporate the changes made to the Corporate Enterprises Act after its modification by Act 5, 2021. Approved. Item 8.2 is approved. Item 8, Section 3, to include an index and modify Articles 8, 9, 12, 20, 29, 38.2 and or 58 in order to introduce technical improvements. Approved. We have approved 8.3. Item 9. We're putting to your approval the modification of the general meeting regulations, which is divided into 3 sections, each referring to a set of articles which will be voted on separately. We've also made available to shareholders a complete text with the 3 proposed resolutions and the board report explaining why they are there. Item 9.1, amendment of Article 7, 10, etc., in order to have remote general meetings under the new articles in the Corporate Enterprises Act. Approved. Item 9.1 is approved. 9.2, amend Articles 8, 12 and 24.5 in order to incorporate changes introduced into the Corporate Enterprises Act after its modification by Act 5, 2021. Approved. Item 9.2 is approved. Item 9, Section 3, to include an index and modify Articles 8.2a, 10.4, 11, 12.4, 16, 18, 19 and 22, and reorder Article 23, changing the names in Section 4 of Title 4 and creating a new Section 5 in Title 4 to introduce technical and wording improvements. Approved? We've approved Item 9.3. Item 10 on the agenda, then, is to approve on a consultative vote the Ferrovial Climate Strategy Report for 2021. The full wording of the report has been made available to the shareholders with the calling of this general meeting. Approved? We have approved Item 10, then. Item 11. To approve, pursuant to Article 529 of the Corporate Enterprises Act, the policy for the remuneration of the Ferrovial SA directors. The remuneration policy will revoke the current one from the date of its approval and will remain in force for the following 3 years, namely 2023, 24 and 25. The document with the policy and the report from the Appointments and Remuneration Committee have been made available to the shareholders with the call to this meeting. Approved? Then item 11 is approved. Item 12, to approve with a consultative vote the annual report on the director remunerations for 2021. Approved? Then item 12 is approved. Item 13, let me give you a summary. To authorize the Board of Directors to acquire treasury stock of the company directly or indirectly, subject to the following limits and requirements. Maximum number of shares to be purchased, shares of Ferrovial SA in a number such that the face value of the shares that are acquired added to those which are already owned by Ferrovial aren't more than 10% of the shareholder equity. The minimum price for purchasing the shares will be equivalent of 75% of their listed value on the date of acquisition and 125% of said value on said date. The term of authorization is 5 years. The Board of Directors is empowered in order to do the following with the shares: to use them in order to execute programs, in order to redeem or amortize shares, or to use them for shareholder options. The powers conferred in this resolution can be subdelegated to the Executive Committee, the Chairman or the CEO of the company, and in all cases may be exercised by the person responsible for the Treasury stock management. This authorization will substitute the resolution passed by the AGM on the 5th of April 2017, which is now null and void insofar as it hasn't been used. Approved? Then item 13 has been approved. Item 14 of the agenda. We propose to give powers to the board, which can then subdelegate it to the executive committee, the chairman and the CEO. The powers to interpret, correct and execute the resolutions adopted by this general meeting, and to delegate powers to the chairman, CEO and secretary of the board in order to place these resolutions on public record. Approved? Yes. Item 14 approved. Item 15. The shareholders have been given a document showing the modifications brought into the Board of Directors regulations since the last AGM. These modifications were approved in the board meeting of the 27th of July 2021. Having seen the results of the votes for each of the agenda items, which will be duly minuted in the notarized proceedings, which will be posted to the website, we can now adjourn this session. I'd like to thank all of you for participating in this annual general meeting of Ferrovial SA. Good afternoon.